All right, let's get into it. Today we are breaking down one of the most powerful books you'll ever read, Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. Now this book is, it's part memoir, part manifesto. It's a whole theory of psychology that was literally forged inside the horror of Nazi concentration camps. Right from the preface, we get this line that just perfectly captures the entire book. See, Frankl's whole idea isn't about avoiding pain. That's impossible. It's about our deep human need to find a purpose inside that pain. This one sense really sets the stage for everything we're about to explore. So, where did these incredible ideas even come from? Well, we have to go to the source. We're starting in Auschwitz, because Frankl wasn't just some detached academic observing human behavior from afar. He was a trained psychiatrist, yes, but he was also a prisoner, living this nightmare day in and day out. The first thing the camp system did was erase you. As Frankl put it, one literally became a number. Just think about that. Everything that makes you, your name, your career, your family, your clothes, it's all stripped away. In its place, a number tattooed on your arm. This was a deep psychological attack designed to make people feel like they were nothing. Now, how does a mind even begin to cope with that kind of horror? Frankl noticed the second psychological stage kicking in, apathy. And this wasn't just not caring. It was a necessary defense mechanism, a kind of emotional shutdown. You had to numb yourself to survive, seeing the constant death and brutality. It was the only way to keep from going completely insane. And this psychological numbing was happening against a backdrop of just unbelievable physical suffering. We're talking about a diet of watery soup and a tiny scrap of bread, brutal back-breaking labor, digging tunnels or laying railroad tracks in the freezing cold, and over everything hung the constant threat of death. If you were deemed unfit to work for any reason, you could be sent to the gas chambers. That was the reality every single moment. In a place of total control, where every single aspect of your life is dictated by your captors, you'd think every shred of freedom is gone, right? But this is where Frankl made his most profound discovery, something he called the last human freedom. Which leads us to the biggest question of all. When you're in that state of utter despair, starving, and stripped of your identity, how does anyone survive? What is it that separates the people who give up from the ones who find a way to keep going? And the answer he found was this: spiritual freedom. It's the one thing they could never take away. They could control your body, they could control your environment, but they could never, ever control your inner response. That final freedom, the freedom to choose your attitude in any situation, was always yours. Frankl experienced this himself. On these brutal marches, freezing and exhausted, he would escape into his own mind and have vivid, intense conversations with his wife. He had no idea if she was even alive, but you know what? It didn't matter, because as he realized, love is so much more than the physical person. It's a connection to their inner self, a spiritual anchor that the outside world just can't touch. And the prisoners who held on, they used what he called weapons of the soul. They built up this rich inner life to escape the sheer emptiness around them. They found meaning in a beautiful sunset or the sound of a violin someone was playing. They even used a dark, grim sense of humor as a way to rise above their suffering for just a moment. These weren't little distractions. They were life-saving acts of defiance. So this whole experience, it wasn't just a story of survival. It was the very crucible that created a brand new approach to psychotherapy. This brings us to logotherapy and its core idea, a will to meaning. Frankl's work became known as the Third Viennese School of Psychotherapy. Now, he wasn't dismissing the giants who came before him, like Freud or Adler. He was actually building on their work, but then taking it in a completely new direction, one shaped by his own lived experience. And here's the key difference. While a lot of earlier psychotherapy was all about digging into your past, logotherapy is future-focused. And where someone like Freud said we're driven by a will to pleasure, and Adler said it was a will to power, Frankl said, no, you're missing the most important one. He argued our most basic drive is a will to meaning. So what is this will to meaning? It's this idea that what we want most, deep down, isn't pleasure or power. It's to feel like our life has a purpose. And it's not something you just invent out of thin air. It's something you discover, something you detect out there in the world. It's what pulls you forward. Okay, so that sounds great, right? A will to meaning. But how do we actually find it in our own lives? Well, Frankl didn't just leave it as a vague idea. He laid out 3 very clear paths that anyone could take. Here they are, pretty simple on the surface. Number 1, by creating a work or doing a deed. Number 2, by experiencing something or encountering someone. And number 3, the most profound one of all, through the attitude we choose to take towards suffering that we just can't escape.
The first path is probably the most obvious one for a lot of us. It's achievement. This is the meaning we get from our work, our hobbies, the things we build and accomplish. It's that sense of purpose that comes from putting something out into the world.
The second path is all about experiencing something fully. This could be getting lost in a piece of music or just appreciating the beauty of nature. But Frankl says the most powerful way to find meaning here is through love, by truly, deeply seeing and appreciating another human being for exactly who they are. And that brings us back to the camps. This is the third and maybe the most important path. It's through suffering. When you're facing something terrible that you absolutely cannot change, the only freedom you have left is how you deal with it. This, Frankl says, is how you can turn a tragedy into a personal triumph. So how does all this, these lessons learned in the darkest of places, apply to us in the modern world? Well, Frankl argued that even with all our comforts and freedoms, we face our own kind of crisis, which he connected to life's unanswered question. He called it the existential vacuum. You might know the feeling. It's that sense of emptiness, of meaninglessness that can creep in on a Sunday night when the distractions of the busy week are gone. It's that nagging feeling of, is this really it? Now, this vacuum doesn't always show up as simple boredom. Frankl said it wears a lot of masks. It can look like a frantic chase for more money or more power. It can look like a desperate search for pleasure. He even believed that many big societal problems, like addiction, often grow from this deep-seated hunger for meaning. And this brings us to Frankl's most radical, game-changing idea. He completely flips the script on that old question, what is the meaning of life? He says that's the wrong question. We shouldn't be asking life what its meaning is. We have to realize that life is asking us. Life is constantly posing questions to us, and we answer, not with words, but with our actions, with how we choose to live. So Frankl's work doesn't hand you an answer. Instead, it leaves you with a profound responsibility and a final powerful question to carry forward. What is life asking of you?